empire so hard it makes you question if they were ever actually good at anything, because that's Salt Bae right now. The man who turned sprinkling salt into $1 million brand just watched his entire restaurant chain crumble faster than his reputation after that World Cup disaster. We're talking about a guy who went from dining with Leonardo DiCaprio and David Beckham to getting kicked out of Champions League after parties like a drunk college freshman. And honestly, it's been a long time coming, because Salt Bae didn't just lose his restaurants. He lost his mind, his credibility, and apparently his ability to read a room. Because while his empire was collapsing around him, this man was still out here trying to crash football events like he invented the sport. It's giving main character syndrome meets reality check, and the internet has been eating it up like it's free entertainment. Which, let's be honest, it basically is at this point. But to understand how spectacularly Salt Bae fumbled the bag, we need to rewind to when he actually had one. Back in 2017, Salt Bae was just a regular butcher in Istanbul until he posted a 36-second video of himself sprinkling salt down his arm. That clip got 16 million views and turned him into an overnight sensation. Suddenly, every celebrity wanted to eat at his restaurant, pay ridiculous prices for gold-covered steak, and watch him perform his little salt dance. It was peak internet culture meets fine dining, and for a while it actually worked. The man was charging $1,000 for steaks wrapped in gold leaf that you could buy on Amazon for $10. But people didn't care, because they weren't just buying food. They were buying the experience, the Instagram moment, the chance to say they ate at the viral chef's restaurant. Salt Bae became a living tourist attraction, and his restaurants in Dubai, Miami, London, and New York were packed with influencers and celebrities willing to drop serious cash for a photo op. But here's the thing about building your entire empire on a meme. Memes have expiry dates, and Salt Bae started going bad the moment he decided that being internet famous meant he could do whatever he wanted, wherever he wanted. The first major red flag was in 2018 when he posted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro at his Istanbul restaurant, while the Venezuelan people were literally starving and facing one of their worst economic crises in history. But Salt Bae was out here serving this dictator gold-plated steaks and posting about it like it was a flex. The backlash was immediate and brutal. But
Ya bu salak ya.
instead of learning from it, Salt Bae doubled
Ya
down on
okudum onu, orospu çocuğu. Niye bunu okuyan pit yazdın ya? Ananı sikeyim senin ya.
controversy. Because then came the World Cup incident.
Ya bu çok kötüydü. Niye böyle bir şey? Abi bu adam gerçekten Tanrı sendromuna girdi ve yanına bu işten anlayan bir PR insanı alsa, ayda ona $100.000 bile verse şu an daha zengin olurdu. Salak ya. Niye yaptın oğlum böyle bir şey? Her şeyi biliyorum diye. Abi çok kötü ya. PR ekibi var. PR ekibi var ve bunu mu yaptılar? Ananı sikeyim, şaka yapıyorsun ya. PR ekibi de kendi gibi köylü müydü?
basically nuked his reputation. December 18th, 2022, Argentina just won the World Cup. And while the players were celebrating one of football's greatest moments, Salt Bae decided to make it about himself.
Ya bir şey diyeceğim. Türkiye kazansa yine bak bir şekil yedirirdi de bunu. Baba Arjantin'le senin ne alakan var? Sen ne yapıyorsun amına koyayım yani bunu?
Росомаха.
Abi bu bir cactus sekli dogrumu.
Abi korkuyorum ya. Yanlış kardeşim. Ne bunu böyle soru mu olur? Yarrağımı tutsun
This
öyle.
man somehow snuck onto the pitch, started grabbing players for selfies, and literally snatched the World Cup trophy out of their hands. The audacity was astronomical. I mean, Messi's face said everything you needed to know about how inappropriate this was. But Salt Bae was too busy performing for the cameras to notice he was making everyone uncomfortable. The internet absolutely destroyed him for it. FIFA launched an investigation and banned him from all future official events. The same man who once had celebrities lining up to eat at his restaurants was now blacklisted from major sporting events. But did he learn his lesson? Of course not. Because earlier this year, he tried to crash a Champions League after party and got publicly escorted out by security like any other party crasher. He tried to play it off, but the second-hand embarrassment was off the charts. But while Salt Bae was busy embarrassing himself on the world stage, his restaurant empire was quietly falling apart behind the scenes. Turns out, when you build your business on spectacle instead of substance, people eventually catch on. His New York location got absolutely roasted by food critics, with one calling it New York's worst restaurant. The London location scraped a 2-star rating on TripAdvisor and was ranked near the bottom of over 23,000 restaurants in the city. People were paying premium prices for what many described as average food at best, and the reviews reflected that harsh reality. But the real tea came from his former employees, who started spilling about what it was really like working for Salt Bae. Multiple lawsuits revealed a workplace culture that was allegedly toxic as hell. Workers claimed he withheld tips, forced them to work 72-hour weeks without overtime, and created an environment where people were afraid to speak up. One lawsuit resulted in a $230,000 settlement, and immediately after, he fired the employees who sued him. The optics were terrible, but Salt Bae seemed more concerned with protecting his image than addressing actual problems. The most horrifying incident happened during one of his signature tableside fire shows in 2018. 4 customers got burnt, including a young model who suffered third-degree burns over 35% of her body. Now, instead of taking responsibility or showing any remorse, Salt Bae went radio silent. No apology, no public statements, nothing. It was like the incident never happened in his mind. But the internet doesn't forget, and neither do the people who got hurt. So as the controversies piled up, customers started doing the maths and asking uncomfortable questions. Why were they paying $55 for a Heineken? Why was a Red Bull $30? What exactly were they getting for their money besides watching a guy with sweaty arms sprinkle salt on overpriced meat? The luxury experience that once felt exclusive started feeling like a scam, and people began staying away in the masses. This is...
Oğlum Heineken $55 Türkiye'de bile isteyemezsin ya. O kadar fahiş alkol fiyatlarında anasının amıymış. Heineken ne ya $55?
evident because numbers don't lie. Salt Bae's US empire has shrunk from 7 locations to just 2 in the past couple of years. His Beverly Hills flagship, once a symbol of his success, officially shut down in June 2025. The London location saw profits drop by over 30%, and even his Dubai restaurant was struggling to fill tables. These weren't just bad months or seasonal dips. This was a systematic collapse of a brand that had lost all its credibility with its target audience. And so, in a desperate attempt to save his failing restaurants, Salt Bae did something that completely contradicted everything he built his brand on. He slashed prices. The same man who once said quality is never expensive,
quality never expensive,
was suddenly offering discounts like a clearance sale at a dying mall. It was the ultimate admission that his pricing was never about quality in the first place. But even with lower prices, people weren't coming back. The damage to his reputation was too severe and the trust was gone. But the most pathetic part of this whole saga is watching Salt Bae refuse to accept reality. Even as his restaurants closed and his reputation crumbled, he was still posting receipts of expensive bills on social media like they were trophies. And he was still trying to crash exclusive events like he was still relevant. The man was living in a fantasy where his 15 minutes of fame never ended, but the rest of the world had moved on. What makes Salt Bay's downfall so satisfying to watch is that it was entirely self-inflicted. He had everything handed to him on a silver platter. Viral fame, celebrity endorsements, a global brand, and millions of dollars in revenue. All he had to do was not be a complete disaster of a human being. And he couldn't even manage that. Instead of focusing on making good food and treating his employees well, he chose to chase clout and controversy at every turn. So the lesson here isn't just about Salt Bay. It's about what happens when you mistake viral fame for actual talent, when you prioritize performance over substance, and when you think being a meme makes you untouchable. Salt Bay built his empire on a 36-second video, but he destroyed it with years of bad decisions, toxic behavior, and an ego that wrote checks his actual skills couldn't cash. Now he's left with a
Mental
handful of
oldum
struggling
ya.
restaurants, a reputation in shambles, and the internet using him as a
Ya işin basic'ini çöpe attı çünkü. Yani şunu söylemek lazım. Salt Bay, Nusret kötü bir kasap ya da kötü bir et pişirici değildi. Yani gerçekten iyiydi. Şunu söyleyebilirim. Bazı teknikleri de literatüre sokmasa da yaygınlaşmasını başardı. Yani nedir mesela o tekniklerden birisi? Dışını şey yapıyorsun, mühürlüyorsun.
Şikecek'te böyle saçma şeyler olmayacak değil mi abi, bir de dayı
Ya
nerede?
yok, siktir git amına koyayım. Alırsın kasadan yemeğini, siktirip gidip yersin. Bana ne amına koyayım, sana gelip bir de şov mu yapacağız? Ne Beef Wellington ya, Beef Wellington Gordon Ramsay. Ya dışını mühürlüyorsun etin, sonra ince ince kesip ghee dediğimiz saf tereyağıyla, sıcak saf tereyağıyla içini pişiriyorsun üstüne dökerekten. Mesela bu güzel bir teknik. Bunu yaygınlaştırdı. Bunu yaptı. Ondan sonra bu altın olayını yaygınlaştırdı. Bence bir esprisi yok. Ama sade yağ mı deniyor ona Türkçesinde? Evet, işte sade yağla falan. Hani böyle teknikleri vardı. İyiydi de, ama bence onu bile düzgün bir şekilde bence sürdürülebilir hale getiremedi. Standartize edemedi. Standartizasyon bu işlerde çok önemlidir. Yani ben her gittiğimde aynı kalitede yiyebilmem lazım. Her gittiğimde aynı kalitede yiyemiyorsam, bir keresinde şöyle bir keresinde böyle oluyorsa sikerler abi. Yani müşteri ikincide üçüncüde gelmemeye başlar. Bu iş böyledir yani. Bu iş budur.